Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tried and True, a podcast hosted by Delaware War Machine. I am your host, Paul.
Dan's here.
Hi, I'm Andy.
And I'm Erica. Before we get started with today's podcast, we just want to thank all of our listeners for giving us your time. Huge shout out to More Than Dice for giving us another platform. And thank you to our patrons on Patreon for your continued support. You guys rock. All of your support will help our efforts to create more quality content for you. So far, funds for 2024 have been used for supporting terrain and tables for events like Nova and to beautify our bat reps. And we're currently saving towards an actual real camera, you guys. It's very exciting. We also wanted to take a quick minute to share the news of some new content creators that are out there. So if you're looking for some battle reports, we have a gaming group out of New York called Dual Attack. Links will be in the description below if you want to add more War Machine battle reports to your playlist. Check them out. Game Store Mercs is another new battle report channel. I think those guys are out of the Midwest US. Thanks, guys, for the battle reports. And then we wanted to give a special spotlight on Glass Half Dead. He just put out some How to Play War Machine videos. It's a 3-part series. If you know someone that's interested in trying out the game and want a rundown of the rules, definitely check it out in the show notes below.
And now at this point, we're going to go ahead and introduce our special guests. On behalf of our community at Delaware War Machine and Tried and True, we would like to give a warm welcome to the CCO of Steamforged Games, Matt Hart, as well as CEO Rich Loxham. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for coming and sharing your time with us today.
Hello, thank you very much for having us. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, looking forward to this.
All right, so gentlemen, thank you so much for making time with everything. So how has this transition been with taking over the IP and keeping up with all the AMAs and all the other fun jazz that's going on that we don't even have like an idea about?
It's been, as you would probably imagine, very, very busy. Now, we thought that we were terribly clever and knew exactly what was going to go on, but it ended up being way busier in a good way. So we've been really integrating with guys and girls at PP. We've been obviously kicking the tires and uncovering, turning over all the rocks and working out where everything is and looking to sort of build a solid roadmap going forward. And in amongst all of those things, looking to try and keep as many excited people up to date with what's going on and hanging out with the community. And perhaps most important of all, but it feels like lower priority, playing bucket loads of War Machine, which is always a pleasure.
I think the other part as well is, it can feel frustrating on the front end because, we kind of do the big announcement and then there's a sort of a level of a little bit of quietness while we're getting our ducks in order and getting it on. But, it will pay off for everyone, I promise you, because there's so much stuff coming down the pipeline, like Matt said, that we've been working on. And we just need that little bit of space to get it all in line. And what we don't want to do is rush anything out and make mistakes when we do that. So we take our time and get it right.
I know there's like a saying that I've heard plenty of times is slow is steady, steady is smooth, and smooth is fast. It's usually how it ends up going, as opposed to trying to rush through everything and then stumbling through it. And then that transition could possibly maybe have players have a little bit of apprehensions or trepidations of the overall transition.
Yeah, this is certainly the building trust time. This is when the relationship blooms, right?
I think so, and I think it's both the time of great opportunity, but also great risk. So it's always better. We're firm believers in measuring twice and cutting before we cut. I think I like the way you describe it, Paul. I often refer to a golf analogy, which is if you take your time over your putt, if you line it up properly, if you don't rush it, the chances are you're going to take less putts. So overall, you will be quicker and off the green faster with a better score than if you just roll it up to the, just keep banging it at the hole until it goes in. So I'm a firm believer in golf teaching me lots of lessons, which is why I like to play as often as I can.
I am Mr. 3-putt, so there is that.
There is not much golf right now, though, because we are knee-deep in War Machine.
So if you are very skilled at measuring twice and cutting once, would you say that you're good at pre-measuring?
I am really good at pre-measuring. I'm also pretty good at guessing distances as well. That was
the old Mark II skill, yeah.
But what made me chuckle about that was someone said, "Oh, is there anything you want to bring back from an older rule set?" And I kind of went, "Lol, no pre-measuring," right? And then I put JK and a smiley face, which I don't know. Maybe I'm out of touch with the kids nowadays, but to my mind, that kind of implies that I'm not serious. But hey, never say never. Widgets are a blessing and a curse.
Don't start rumors already. We're only like 10 minutes in. Like,
And the internet goes wild.
It reminds me of a wild story I heard where there was like a steamroller or some kind of tournament, and there was a guy before pre-measuring was a thing, and he calculated every single measurement that his opponent ended up doing, and then he's like, he made this much distance, he should be this close, but he's not that close. What happened? They found out that the table was actually like an inch like longer than it should have been. I'm like, man, come on.
I can go one better that, because that was kind of a thing. So I would deliberately deploy 1 inch behind my deployment line and then run the full distance forwards. And it did catch people out because they were using that kind of calculation approach. So yeah, it's funny what war games, what we end up doing sometimes.
The mind games.
Subconscious trigonometry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the whole measuring your control range, wasn't it? And going, well, if that's over there, then that must by Pythagoras, that must mean that,
I made a lot of 5, 4, 3 triangles with my control area, just so I could do the math on a clock.
Why didn't I pay attention to trigonometry?
I can't comment because I used to play the Witch Coven and and Erigor and yeah, so that was part of the game plan. Yeah.
If everything's your control range, everything's measurable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, well, gentlemen, let's go ahead and talk about how this episode is going to go. We have a bit of an outline that we have a handful of questions that I know that we picked out that we were really interested in asking you. And then we have a short Q&A section from our listeners. And then, just kind of rounding it off with what are the future plans and what we got to go look forward to. So if you're ready, I would really like to kick off the first question. And I'm really interested in knowing how long, if you can share about this, like how long has this conversation happening with this acquisition? And I have my own theories about it, but I mean, like, I remember seeing somebody with like posting a picture of a 120 millimeter base. I saw SFG's print on the bottom, and that was a relatively quick turnover. So I'm imagining that there's been like workings going on in the past, or there's been things happening that we've not been privy to. So can you talk a little bit about the transition?
Yeah, so we've known Matt Wilson for quite a few years. So me, Matt, and Wilson, we've been talking over the last couple of years, and this Gen Con just gone last year. Me, Matt, and Matt. It's always difficult with 2 Matts now. But Hart and Wilson, we got in a room together and had a discussion, and from there we really started working out what could the future look like together, and what could that be. So fast forward to now, there was a few projects that we, very close. It was us 3 kind of worked on to make sure that transition was as smooth as possible. One of those was those bases like you mentioned. The other being the start of the hip set that's coming. And yeah, that allowed us just to get a little bit of a head start in the ultimate place. So it was definitely a good faith thing on both our parts, and thankfully all played off and is exactly where we are today.
I think what it does show is and the more astute amongst you, yourselves included, will realise that some of the things that we're talking about actually have quite long lead times. So in the background, we have been working on a number of things. So this has been bubbling away for quite some time as an active development project for us. Imagine spending all those times working on really cool stuff and not really being able to talk about it or hint about it or anything like that for numerous and obvious reasons. So it was really, really exciting to finally be able to share what we're doing, and hopefully it means that we come out the gates with a really solid plan with some really exciting, new toys for us to all play with. Not the least of which is 120mm bases. I mean, which, speaking of someone, all of us over here in the UK and mainland Europe, they are pretty rare and hard to find.
Yeah, I for one really, really enjoyed the part of the announcement where you had that nice set piece and the nice photography and the painted models, and it was just well put together to say, hey, this is what we're gonna provide you guys. This is the expectation, which it looked really, really cool. It was a good announcement centerpiece.
I agree.
I will echo that on Andy, because I just remember seeing all the old artwork pictures of like these huge armies on those battlefields, and I appreciate that a lot because there's an art to that as well, not even just the presentation.
I was just going to say, it's actually genuinely heartwarming to have got that feedback, because when Rich and I sat down and we looked at, what is important to us about this opportunity and where do we want to take things, there is a huge amount of strong, fond memories of our times with War Machine throughout the last 15, 20 years. And you think, you know, really what it all boils down to is awesome looking minis on an awesome looking tabletop, playing games with your friends, old or new, and just having a good time. So trying to encapsulate that and communicate that. Pictures do paint 1,000 words, photos do it even quicker. We didn't actually, it was one of those things where we didn't expect it to generate comment. We just thought it was going to be one of those really cool things to do that just really is a statement of our intent. But for people to actually notice it, pick up on it, and appreciate it, actually is really, really great. Sort of positive feedback for us that we are on a decent course with that line of thinking.
Yeah. I want to echo what my other hosts are saying here, that I really think the move to put that good faith lead time in, before the acquisition was finalized, that allowed you to make that initial post, come on the scene and say, guys, here's who we are, here's what's happening, and bam, look at this awesome photograph. Look at what we are bringing to the table. And I think that set the tone for this conversation in the right way. And it certainly excited the hell out of me. So I'm here for it. I want to see more of those pictures, man.
Well, there's
plenty more coming. Yeah, there is plenty more coming. Yeah.
All right. Well, since I'm here, I'll ask the next one, I guess. For me personally, when I play War Machine, part of why I come to the table is to do it physically, in person, with miniatures and physical components. I spend so much of my life online and in front of a computer screen for work and for everything else that I do, that I love disconnecting from screens when I play War Machine. Part of that is, the cards from the past edition. And I loved my little binder full of cards that I carried around with me. I even converted Paul to using them. And I'm hoping that we can discuss some of the cards in the app, and if we can understand if you guys have a plan about these physical cards and dialing them into the traditional, old school card sized. Anything you can offer on that?
So I can answer this one, Matt. So I think the first part of this is that we wanted to make sure we got which at the end of Privateers, right, they managed to put in, which was the print to PDF function. All right, so that starts to enable people that like that format. It's been only right now we've introduced that at kind of the basic stage. The app development itself has got quite a lot of things that we want to do in it, and one of the challenges is balancing which ones to do first, right? So I think there's a bunch of options on there that we've got to do, including like making it easier to print in a card format, from PDFs, things like that. Right now it's the damage grids and that you can print out. So yeah, there's definitely a list and a priority around what we do on the app, and it's a long one.
Yeah, I think slightly annoyed because Rich has set me up to be bad cop now. But this is it's part of my job. So with everything, with every decision that's made for this product range and all the other products that we work on, there's always arguments for and against, and there's never ever 100% to zero clean decision that's easy to make. So generally, what you have to look at is what are the pros and cons of option A and option B, and then you have to make a judgment call. And I think when we look at some of the experiences that we learned the hard way with games like Guild Ball and God Tier, having printed cards available in the boxes literally puts a date stamp on that box.
Yeah.
And that puts an awful lot of pressure and difficulty into the process if we want to update that card for whatever reason. And guess what? War games and balancing war games and understanding how the meta is going to play out with something is tricky. And sometimes you do need to adjust the card. Sometimes you do need to, make a, an overall kind of balance. And that's really problematic with physical cards. Whereas, if you look at like an app-based solution, it's a lot easier to roll that out. It's a lot easier to keep not only the game balance, but more importantly than trying to achieve the nirvana of perfect balance, but actually keeping the meta moving. So if you've seen a model that's being played too much, that's great for a little while, but you don't want the game to become stale. You want to then bring something else online, see some people trying some different stuff out. The game feels fresh and exciting, but then there's always that temptation to do it too much. So we go back to those kind of pros and cons. I think when I look at and I hate using this phrase because it is overused, but I can't think of a better one. When you look at the design space, the amount of options that are going into each of the individual models, when you look at their rules as written now, many of them will not fit on a card. So this is something that we need to kind of think about carefully. So what I'm trying to do is paint a picture that, as Rich says, there is options and there are things that we are looking at. These all need to be prioritized properly, but there is also real world hard constraints. And I say all of this as someone who is the wrong side of 50, who really doesn't like looking at his phone, trying to remember how all these cards work together. I'm the old school guy who likes to deploy his army and then put the actual individual cards behind the units so I can understand who's doing what and where they are and who they're next to. And so I've had to kind of learn how to use the app and try and adjust. And printable PDF option, yes, it doesn't look pretty. Yes, it doesn't kind of act in as a condensed away, but it's certainly enough to kind of help you achieve some of those things. So it's a very complicated situation, but I totally empathize, and it's definitely something for us to kind of consider going forward. But right now, when we went through all the pros and cons, the benefits of sticking to the app-based solution actually far outweighed the benefits of switching to a card-based solution, if I'm perfectly honest with you, for some of the reasons that I've just talked about.
Oh, very with you on that. I definitely prefer having the tight rule system. I think that's my priority number one because I love the game above all else, But my brain just works differently when I have the writing on paper in front of me. And I
Yeah.
do miss that touch of the classic War Machine that I got from, like you said, moving my cards next to them to be able to leave my damage, markers over there, very easily, in the little top loaders and things. We're going way back now. But I'm glad we got a kindred spirit in there. So thanks for that.
Exactly. And we will be looking for not necessarily solutions, but we're looking for benefits, ways we can improve it. For example, I would love to discover a way that makes it a bit easier to see how much damage is on an enemy jack, without, and sometimes, like back in the day, you could just look across to see how much kind of Sharpie pen was on a marker or a dry wipe. So it's something that we're kind of conscious of and working on.
It just comes back to that, like we said at the start, it's that priorities, what we're doing first, and there's a lot of big picture bits we've got to get in place before we start on some of that.
Yeah.
I haven't even considered that, actually. It does make a point, though. It's War Machine being an open information game, it is nice for your opponent to be able to look across the table, and without having to ask, they'll know how much damage is on X or Y or Z model, and then they can more easily include that in their game plan without having to wait for the application to switch to that model, and then all right, here's the other screen on my phone, turn it around, there you go. That can be a cumbersome addition to the game. Cards can be helpful.
Yeah, but this is, again, the designer in me is looking for human beings are really adaptable. And one of the things that I've noticed that I do, and a lot of people that I do, is we've got really good at counting damage. So we've got generally a fairly accurate picture in our head of where we've put damage out and roughly what something's got left. And sometimes it's not even roughly. One of the guys at the studio, he kind of has a mathematical kind of brain where he knows precisely how much damage is left. And if you've missed, kind of like tabbed a bit of damage, he's like, how much you got left on that? Got 4. He goes, oh, I thought it was 5. You're like, oh, well, I've marked 4, so it's 4, so it's fine. So I think human beings are able to adapt. But yeah, it's a conversation I think we could definitely rabbit on about for a long time. But I don't know what the solution is right now. We'll just keep working on quality of life improvements as we go along.
I just love hearing that you guys have an open mind about it. That's all.
For sure. Yeah.
Sure.
So I'll be next up in the shoot. Rich and Matt, I got an easy one for you. Easy question. What has been the most challenging thing for you and your team in terms of what you've had to overcome, and what's been the most rewarding about this transition?
That is one of those things that is an easy question, but the answer is
I can do a challenging one, Matt, if you want.
I think I've gone through a number of these style of projects in the past, and one of the common things that is always important to make sure that you have a good plan for is integration of teams. And that it hasn't been the most challenging thing, but if you don't do it properly, you don't approach it with a rigor and a plan, then it very rapidly becomes the most challenging thing. So in many ways, the most challenging thing we already mitigated by planning for it and working hard towards it. So we have a really great relationship with, the team at PP, and what I'm really enjoying is the way that we've fully interlaced now, and what that it stops it becoming, like a client server kind of relationship, but more of a team relationship in which we are all working out what is the right thing to do, what is the right direction of travel. Everyone knows what their job is. We all go off and do it, and then we come back, and then we reassess, replan, re-go. So I think we've sidestepped the greatest challenge.
I think on my side, one of the biggest challenges we had is just the sheer logistics of that day one signatures happened, and how we had to move everything, 20 odd, 25 years of content, from web stores to sculptors that are already contracted for the next 3 or 4 months, to just finance and logistics, mini crate, you name it. I think although we wrote it all down on paper and like we knew these things were coming, when you actually press that button, it's a lot of late nights. And I think the last month has definitely been that. And we're in a really good shape now of a lot of work streams are in place, and like Matt said, Matt's been working very hard on that integration on the front end, and I've definitely been doing more kind of the business logistics and admin on the back end. But both me and Matt have been very in sync on how what we do, and for internal and external working with teams, and it's just meant that it's been an enjoyable process, this whole thing, but definitely a lot of late nights on that. I think from a kind of what the exciting bit and that we've seen as well, like the second part of the question. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, as a fan of War Machine for all these years, getting to see the mind of what Wilson's planned, and the future bits coming down the pipeline, and seeing what's coming, incredibly exciting. And I think it's really cool
Yeah,
to
I'll bounce off of that as well in terms
yeah
of, one of the things that has been really exciting is how easy it's been to align with Matt and Jason and
yeah
the rest of the team, and how willing and open they have been to sharing the direction and communicating what their thoughts and plans and dreams are going forward, and integrating the directions that we want to bring to the game as well. So if I'm excited about anything, it is working with those guys more, because they're just a lot of fun and to work with. And I mean, I would get in so much trouble, but I have a document on my desk which is literally the plans for the next couple of years, army lists out the wazoo. There's some very, very exciting phrases on here, and I'm
I
thoroughly
feel like I'm
enjoying
being teased right now.
You gotta make sure that you hide that laptop. Just saying.
Tell us one. Tell us one.
Midnights, please.
Hmm.
I'm desperate.
You'll have to invite us back, and I'll have to make sure I get it triple checked off by our marketing team. Otherwise, I will get murdered.
Deal.
I think when we did the data server migration, obviously that was one of the big bits, getting access to 20 odd years of private press, and just being able to look in that. There was definitely at least a few hours sat there just searching, and just seeing how much amazing work had been done over that time, and the artwork and the sculpts. It's just an incredible amount of stuff, and it's sort of humbling that me and Matt are in the position now of something that we were passionate about back in the day, to be able to now work on it and take it to its next stage.
That's cool. Well, I have a second part best memory with this, is that with playing War Machine, or even really miniature games in general, do either of you have a favorite memory from playing the game? Whether it was a botched assassination when you needed sixes to hit and you couldn't roll above a 5 to save your life, or possibly some weird scenario that just like worked in your favor. Can you quickly go over maybe like your favorite time ever playing this game?
So mine is, and this will absolutely tell you a lot about my personality. But I remember playing a guy called Nick in the Welsh Masters. I had Borka. He had a very, very viable assassination run. I made 6 tough checks in a row and just laughed at him the whole way.
Oh God.
No.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to say mine now, and I always get mocked for mine. So I remember when I won the UK Hardcore Championship, the first one. I'll throw it in there. It was a very enjoyable tournament. But
Tell us more
actually,
about it, Rich.
I'm not going to say any more about it because actually, from all my time playing, I did play a lot of high level tournament play in the UK and beyond, in Belgium and Europe and that. But actually, one of the biggest things that I had most enjoyment was creating the European Team Championship with Jamie, running that event and bringing people together through that was amazing, and being part of also the initial idea and conception of SmogCon, being helping to get that off the ground. They were the things I actually remember a lot of at the time, and now thinking back, it was all those memories of those events and the people that make the events.
I think you're right. And actually, most of my fondest memories were things that happened with the people there. So rather than necessarily specific dice rolls and things like that, it was being at the old Firestorm Games in Cardiff, and Rob, the owner, decided to cook a barbecue out the back door, but didn't realise that all of the smoke was coming into the room, and we were trying to play War Machine in like this fog and choking to death and things like that. So I just had some absolutely wild times playing War Machine and hanging out with people, which I think is really at the heart of everything that we want to do, which is have just a lot of fun, meeting a lot of people, hanging out with friends.
I remember one of the tournaments I went to. I do have a funny memory of, which was, I think I took it was a Haley list with the Thunderhead. So my only counter would have been, because it was quite a very kind of anti-electricity, right? So if anyone had any anti-electricity, I was kind of had it. And I was like, at the time, not many people in the UK were playing Signar. There was no list that really run it. So I thought, I'm really in here. I played Jamie, I think round one, I beat Jamie, which is obviously, I had a good run through. And for some reason, I remember the final, I come up in the final and I was against a complete Stormguard, anti-electricity list. And I was like, oh, this is my worst matchup ever. And it come down to a gun mage trying to kill the caster on a 6, and I rolled a 5. And it's just, that's always sat me with that one. So Henry will remember that, I'm sure. And I've still never forgiven him for it at this stage.
Oh.
All right. Well, a little fun bit for the listeners here. We do actually have in the show notes that Rich has to try to answer this question without mentioning hardcore.
Fail.
Not gonna happen. Yeah.
All right. I'll go for the next one here. And this might be a bit of a big talk, so I'll burn right through the question as fast as possible here. I love terrain. I love the puzzle that it adds to the game. And I know that, Matt, you're also a big fan of terrain, as I've seen the online mention that you're going to include some terrain additions to the game in the new plastic 2-player starter box. Can you take us through some of the 3D terrain items that are currently in the game and may in fact be coming out in addition to the game in the future? I'm talking things like guard towers and bunkers, stuff you don't just stand on or take cover behind. I love this interactive terrain and would love to know more about it and how you plan to work it into the game in the future.
I think interactive terrain is kind of a phase 2. So if you've got your bleep button ready, I just to confirm, I fucking love terrain, and 3D terrain, and I think
Amen, brother.
I think it's the greatest advertisement for a game. If you walk into your store and you see a board that has neoprene, unpainted minis, flat as hell, you're going to be mildly interested at best. If you see something with 120 mil bases, fully painted, awesome terrain, people rolling dice, having fun, you're absolutely mathematically going to be more interested, I think. So the more we can make this game a great experience for everyone playing and everyone adjacent to you playing, the better it's going to be. So for me, phase 1 is absolutely going to be getting proper terrain on the board, making terrain a more important part of the game, and then that opens the door for more interactable terrain. Absolutely. I know Rich and I have had a couple of chats about I like, it was a little while back, but where you could actually include terrain as part of your army list. You pay points for it, you get a benefit for it. It kind of does a thing for you. I'm a huge fan of that as well. But
Yeah.
I do absolutely recognize that some of the interactive terrain had a few kind of balance issues with it, which might have caused a few problems. So before we kind of go marching too far towards that future, I want to stress that it needs to not break the game, otherwise it's kind of working counter purpose. But I think terrain is a real opportunity space for for the game, but also for War Machine as a bit as a business. It like terrain is another thing that people can invest their dollars in and paint and enjoy and keep and play with. So broadening the product range is a healthy thing for us to do as a business as well. So baby steps. First things first, I need to get more people painting their armies. I need to get more people playing with 3D terrain, and then we can start marching towards interactive terrain and some of the more wacky ideas that we've got on the whiteboard at the moment.
I think as Matt said, the cool stuff about when structures are introduced, as kind of pickable for the army lists and adding that, it just added a real nice flavour to the armies. When you looked at them on the board and you see the men shrine on the board, things like that. It's just a really good visuals that. And I think, as Matt said, we're big fans of structures and not only that, but then terrain as well with rules and that. So definitely.
I don't want to make this topic go on further, but I remember talking to Matt Getz about how he said the Iron Kingdom setting is just beefy and chunky. And when you talk about like this huge terrain on the table, like it really warms my soul to hear Matt saying that. So I'm just saying, like, I really, really, really appreciate that.
I really want a soul Karen. I'm not gonna lie.
It's very pointy.
It's a tiny pointy piece. Yeah, it should come in a safety war in that case,
well, at risk of slight spoilers, but this is by way of advertising our awesome experience that's going to be at Gen Con. We've literally just printed off a Soul Cam for one of our tables at Gen Con.
Yeah, on the topic of the existing interactable terrain, when it comes to the bunkers and guardhouses, I think a lot of the complaints stem from the list of rules being very, very in-depth, and you don't really want everything on the table to have like a novel of rules when it comes to that. So any interactable terrain, I think when it comes to the streamlining effect of it, has to be like, okay, we can describe this in 3 sentences and we understand what this does to the table, like that kind of thing. And I think that was a hard pill to swallow for some people when it came to putting them on the table.
I agree, and this is where I love the art of design, because it's making something. If you can make the behavior of a piece intuitive, you actually need to write less about it. So take a guard tower, we intuitively know what it should do. It then means that we don't need to write as much for it. So that'll be one of the guiding stars that we use when we look at these interactable terrain pieces going forward.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I think that so much of War Machine is already codified and keyworded, right, in a great way to make it extendable and sustainable to other models and other units. That extending that concept to guard towers, bunkers, every building that you can interact with does the same 5 rules for habitable and all that stuff. That's all a standard template, and then like each one does like one special thing that makes it why you would want to be there. And makes it worth not contesting the scenario, because that advantage is strong enough that you're like, I need to risk occupying this building. Maybe it gets knocked down on me, but look at what I'm getting out of it. Yeah. And everything in the game's a trade-off and an opportunity cost, both in list building and on the tabletop with your tactics. I think it lends a lot to expanding the game. So I'm excited to see what you guys have in store.
I will ask the next one. So moving from terrain to conventions, I'm going to plug Nova really quick. So our group, we run all the events at Nova Open. So on that note, will we get to see SFG at any conventions in North America or the UK? And what does the future look like for Iron Gauntlet or Legendary Narrative events?
Yeah, so we...
You want to, mate? It depends. Are you going to set me up as bad cop again?
No, I'm not going to set you as bad cop. No, that's fine. So we're attending Gen Con. So you will see us at Gen Con, where we're doing the next kind of narrative beat. And the events are up for them. I think you can get the tickets now, I believe, or soon. I can't remember if they're open or not. But yeah, so we're also... we've already reached out to kind of Warfare Weekend. We had discussions with them. I think they publicly put a statement out recently just saying that would happen. We've obviously spoke as well to the Iron Gauntlet, Isaiah, who's been running that. And definitely for us, we really want to, kind of support that circuit. Narrative events have been big and they've been really popular recently, and we want to emphasize and grow that. So on our list of to-dos is part of our reach out is to contact people. So like yourselves, for the Nova piece, we are going to be contacting key shows. and Depticon, for instance, as well, is one of our key shows on that list. So we will be doing a post at some point in the manifesto which tells people our roadmap, our layout, what we're doing there. So it is coming. We're just at the moment doing the reach out, not quietly, but just in the background. So and that will give everyone the updates on that. And I don't want to spoil anything about. No, I can't say anything about the thing me and you talked about, Matt.
Oh no, I'm going to spoil it. So
are you going to do it?
Yeah,
Do it, Matt. Do it.
Do it. Let's go. So what I will say is I am one of those very, very lucky people that has gold status with British Airways because I am in America a lot, and Canada and Northern Europe and around the world. So I am incredibly blessed and fortunate in that regard. But what it does also mean is it's incredibly easy for me to tack on a few extra days to go to a show or visit some stores and hang out. And I try and do that as much as I possibly can. I love Gen Con. I love Adepticon. I can't wait to come to Nova. The traditional problem I always have with Nova is it overlaps when my family vacation usually is. So I'm going to have to start rearranging some of my my home diary to kind of suit. But I think the thing that Rich is now sitting there nervously wondering how much I'm going to say is one of the things that we did acquire is obviously the rights to use the phrase lock and load. And so there are discussions going on at the moment. Now, I will stress this is for a point in the future.
Yes.
This is not an immediate and present danger, but it's something that I think would be a hell of a lot of fun to do. And I'm obviously looking for sensible people to work with and or sensible places in the calendar to kind of see where something like that might be able to fit in. I think would be a really, that's the current conversations that are going on. So the short answer to your question is conventions are incredibly important. We want to be at the conventions, and if we can't be, then we will be looking to support them where we can.
We love doing keynotes. We love talking to the community. There is nothing better than being at those kind of events. And, we know this from in the past at Steamforged. If you listeners don't know, we used to run SteamCons for our games, and, incredibly popular. And it was a way for us to really connect with our fans that you don't always have at a busy convention like things like Gen Con and that. So, yeah, I'm glad Matt didn't spoil too much there, but yeah, lock and load is definitely on our radar. So
Nice.
Very cool. Very cool.
I like that. All right, so I'll take the next one, and you've kind of already hinted at this, but I guess it's to shore up anything else that you could talk through it. War Machine, and I think any wargaming community has a variety of different players that all have a different way that they really enjoy the game. Speaking like casual, competitive, or hobbyist. And in your part one manifesto, you ended up mentioning about making sure that the game would appeal to everybody. I say I'm a diehard hobbyist at this point. I'm going to go build terrain for days and make sure that the tables are pretty. What are, I guess, like if you can say like a peek behind the curtain, what are some activities that you're planning on to support those different audiences?
Well, that's a good question. So I would describe myself as a hobbyist and a casual player. I would much rather lose a game but have a heck of a lot of fun than win a game that was not so fun. And I absolutely like showing off that I've spent a lot of my life learning how to paint. It's kind of my version of peacocking, and I kind of enjoy it. But I really enjoy hanging out with people who also like painting and swapping tips and tricks and stealing ideas and things like that. So I think one of the things that I'm keen to do is to make painting as important. And I think the more we can get people painting minis, the better the hobby is for everyone. And I'm a firm believer that even painting to 3-color minimum is not beyond anyone's capabilities. It's incredibly straightforward and easy to do and just transforms your minis on the tabletop. And I'm talking nothing more complicated than maybe a 2 rattle can Zenithal and colouring them in silver and doing an ink wash. Job done. I'll take that in a heartbeat. So what we want to do in that regard is and obviously we have the P3 range that we're able to bring back to the market, sharing the development and the R&D that's been going on with that, supporting that with painting and hobby-based content, but doing it in a layered way. So a good way to sort of demonstrate that is I firmly think that you can take an army or a model. I think you can paint it to stage 1, which is, as I said, maybe a black undercoat, a coloured zenithal, pick out the metallics, and then just do a wash over it. That's level 1. Level 2, then take the exact same mini, maybe put some, simple volumetric highlights on it, maybe a first stage edge highlight. Level 2, great. If you want to take it to level 3, now you go in and you start smoothing the blends, putting some extra light spot highlights on, maybe doing some special effects on it. And you can see how you can actually very easily pitch your army painting to the level of time and commitment and experience that you have. But it's entirely possible to kind of keep learning, keep progressing, and keep improving the way that your army looks, or fix it at that point. So I'm quite keen to sort of share that message with people. I do think that there should be nothing scary about painting your minis. So that's kind of aspect number one for the hobbyists. I do think also my previously affirmed attitude towards how tables should look will also kind of confirm that making terrain, making cool boards, making stuff like that should also be a whole bunch of content and things that we talk about. And I think this is one of the things that's really important for me, for all of Steamforged, is I firmly believe we have an authentic voice in this space, in the War Machine universe, because we live and breathe what we talk about. So this isn't just making content for content's sake. This is actually making content that we genuinely believe has value and will help people, but also at the same way, take for example, I put one of my latest Orgoth minis up on Reddit earlier. I am not only doing that out of the goodness of my heart, but I kind of painted my Orgoth at the same time. So I get to kill two birds with one stone. In terms of the casual space, I think that the narrative events that the PP have been running for the last little bit are brilliant, and everything I've ever seen about them and the interviews that I've seen, Erica, you've done some wonderful kind of vox pops with people at these kind of events. Everyone seems to just be having a blast playing them. Well, let's just do more of that. Let's come up with cool formats that support that attitude of let's just put some minis down and just roll some dice and just have a whale of a time. So I think it's very easy to look at War Machine and remember how tightly balanced the rule set is, how competitive game can be played, and how clean it is in that regard, and how much fun it can be to play a really competitive game. But I think maintaining that view, maintaining all of those good things, but then bringing up it's fun. We can play asymmetrical scenarios, we can play uneven armies, we can do scenarios that transition as you kind of achieve certain mini objectives. We can make sure everyone's fully painted on 3D terrain. I think it's bringing everything up to make sure that there is really equal weighting across those three key verticals that were described in the manifesto.
I think we've also seen, in the last, like 5 years at least, that the tabletop gaming, miniature scene as a whole, like painting has just become much more commonplace than it was, 10, 20 years ago. When you look at, I've seen some of the incredible armies at the WTC, that people are running there and painting. I think it's just, and, we just want to celebrate that more and more, because like Matt said, that it's a visual hobby and a visual game, and it really does draw you in.
Yeah, and I think I mean, look, this is a whole separate podcast, so you will definitely have to have us back, and I might even bring Russ along with me. But I think one of the things that have you ever heard the phrase "eat your own dog food"? It's probably doesn't
too
make
American
any
for
sense.
that. Sorry.
I am mangling that mercilessly. But my version of that is when we sculpt minis, when we make minis, I print them off, I paint them, and I think it's so insightful. So slight spoiler, but so the new butcher model, I'm painting the butcher model, and in painting, I'm able to give some feedback of some of the key areas that need to be looked at. So I think it's really important to actually put a brush on a mini while it's still in development, and that helps you identify, is this too much detail? Is it not enough detail? Do I have enough flat surfaces to really show off my blending skills? Do I have, a model that I could spray white, use contrast paints, and get to the tabletop with no effort? So there's a lot of things that really need to be considered, and that's something that we did with Guild Ball. So every single mini that came out of Guild Ball, I've painted. Same with God Tier. It's a good job. I'm quite quick. But it's something that I look to continue doing. So, and I think when you start bringing out a range of minis that have that viewpoint that's been considered during its development, it then translates really well into being a model that is fun and easy to paint, and so the cycle kind of begins.
I'd love to hear how you guys are going to support additional narrative efforts. I am actually going to get some time off at Nova to play in the narrative event that we're running, and I'm super stoked about it because it's going to be my first one that I've had a chance to play in.
I'm going to screw with you, right?
Oh, absolutely! It would. I would have it no other way, Andy. I'm going to take Sergey Kroll to the bar again. They're going to go giving the Annihilators stumbling drunk again. It's going to be great. I am the type of guy, I love having fun with my miniatures, but I definitely have that competitive light switch that I like to turn on. And then, when it's game on, I want to play a serious game of War Machine. And I have cherished my admittedly tiny collection of those heavy metal steamroller coins that you used to get when you won an event. I love those things, and they have a special place on my shelf. Is there any chance we see the return of the heavy metal coins?
There is a non-zero chance that might happen.
Woo! All right.
I think just to clarify on that one, we are looking at organized play support, right? So that's what Matt's talking about. So what format that takes, all in discussion. But we're also a big fan of the coins. Yeah,
we love a bit of swag, and if this game doesn't scream, swag opportunities, then we're missing a trick somewhere, aren't we? But
Clout.
yeah,
Sorry, I don't know that.
he was a prolific kind of tournament player, and his collection of coins is unbelievable when you see it all stacked up. He literally has hundreds of them. So
I've still got my Retribution pendant that was from the pre-release event for that, which was pretty gnarly bit of bling. Yeah, so
I have mine in my basement. Don't make me go out and grab it as well. So
I think more importantly that it does lead on to the question about the local game stores and organized play support, and it's something that we absolutely want to kind of bring back. A strong support in there. The local games clubs are incredibly important to the growth of a game. It's why we've said about the hip set is a really important stepping stone for the retailers as well. And so we will make sure that is part of our plan.
I wanted to chime in on that because one of my favorite things, you're talking about the organized play support, but also like looking at people's bags with all the patches on it, because what that does is not only like show like what you played in, but it even starts a conversation. It's like the trick or treat narrative event or the casual event that we did that one night, and Dan and I can recall like the time that we're Alexa or Alexia, what was the
longest night?
The longest
night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The longest wait.
The longest wait. But just like those funny stories, like, hey, remember that one time when we're doing X, Y, or Z, and she just popped up out of nowhere and just like with your army and stuff. So
yeah, Pete and I still have shared custody over that Alexia model. If just moving forward, in case you guys have to fight over who gets to answer a question in the future, in America we do tend to idolize those bad cops. Just so you know.
I'll take it. I secretly love it too, but.
So, talking about Steamroller, I have a question about Steamroller. Will we continue to see Steamroller in the big annual army updates in January? And what are your thoughts of a mid-year review or quick patch post 6 months after launch? And are there any plans for a dedicated Steamroller packet for under 100 points?
Lots of good questions in there. So let me talk about where the current thinking is, but I would stress that some of this is still live discussion, so slightly subject to change. But the Steamroller pack will get a minimum annual update, and the target is always the beginning of the year because that is the cadence around which competitive organized play revolves. And we've been chatting with Lauren and putting together a whole heap of feedback and playtest viewpoints into the master doc. And over the next little bit, we'll be kind of going through all of that and try and work out what the right thing to do is and everything like that for the annual balance. Now, one of the things that we did do in the past, which makes me a little bit nervous about increasing the frequency of that, is we kind of dabbled with the erratas for games like Guild Ball a little bit too often. And what that ended up doing was creating a slightly unstable platform in which people who were less frequent players sometimes found it quite difficult to recognize the game when they came back after a month or two away, and suddenly a whole bunch of stuff had changed. So for me, I'm very, very reluctant to consider anything more frequent than once a year. But that's something that we will observe. And obviously, if something does slip through the net and go out that is particularly egregious, then we'll have to apply an emergency fix to it or stuff like that. So all of that being said, I think for me there will be a Steamroller pack which is predominantly aimed at the competitive play, predominantly aimed at the 100-point level, and the scenarios will be balanced around that that particular play level. But one of the things that I've been working on right now is looking to build a corresponding document that is predominantly designed for more casual play, and that is more looking at those different play levels. So ostensibly 30, 50, and 75, I think are really good tiers of play to look at. And obviously at those different points levels, the scenarios need to take some different things into considerations. And I think it's enough of a volume of work to be worthy of a separate document altogether. Now, whether that all comes out in January or not is up for grabs, or whether we be really smart and bring it out in June or July, and then we end up with a 12-month cycle that's offset by 6 months, so we're not killing ourselves at the end of the year. That's all kind of to be nailed down. But yeah, what I'm looking for eventually is a document that enables competitive play, and a document that provides everything you need to play casually. And the scenarios may or may not be similar. They may, but they will absolutely be tailored and tuned for the different play styles and play levels that we're looking for.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
It's wonderful to hear because it kind of like circles back to that thing of like being able to support everybody.
Yeah.
So,
Got
at this
time
point,
for a quick curveball.
Yeah.
If Steamroller is the competitive play at 100 points, what do you call the other document?
Ha. That is a brilliant question. And so obvious candidates, and this hasn't been locked in. Obvious candidates is Company of Iron, but which I thought was a brilliant game, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But we also want to start building the concept of the command. So there is and I apologize for like slightly kind of businessy language, but we're looking at redefining the SKUs. And how we actually box all the different products up. And one of the structures that's coming out is a 30-point box, which is either a command starter or a command cadre. And those are effectively, in the way we're building them, 30 points in a box. We're looking to use that as the perfect starting point for anyone who wants to try War Machine. So it probably makes a lot of sense for the first kind of organized play kit that you play is a command something. So there might be a mangling Command of Iron or something like that, Iron Command, something along those lines. But we just want to really make sure that we're blending a couple of directions together to make it make sense. So we want people to pick up command sets as a good entry point. We want to make sure they've got a great scenario that leads them into casual play. We want casual play to lead into wherever you want to go. So we don't have a firm name yet. We've got, our internal name is the command format is literally what we're working with at the moment. But that
Command
won't
roller.
be the name. Yeah.
I really like hearing that because of those different styles of play. I never played this, but I remember looking at an old No Quarter. They had the Battle of the Anthak, which was like a territory control narrative casual event, and I've always wanted to do something similar to that.
There's always future Novas, Paul.
I mean, like that'd be a fun multiplayer.
And I think the great thing about casual scenario design is you're able to look at a lot of those scenarios that were really, really actually excellent fun to play, but didn't necessarily get the love that they deserved from competitive players. And a really good example of that is the original Incursion, where one of the objectives disappeared randomly. And typically competitive players were unkeen on that because, you don't quite know which one's going to disappear. For a casual player, I loved it. I loved the randomness, and I loved seeing what was happening, and then trying to react to it. And in my head, this narrative's unfolding as things are happening. So looking at that kind of scenario for more casual play is a hint of the future.
I think, as Matt said on the 30-point command kind of format that he's chatted as well, it's not just for that kind of, it is that entry point, but it's also a way of playing the game quickly, which is where we really like, dropping out a 30-point, list that's in a box, you can crack it open and play, is a really kind of compelling for anyone who's interested in War Machine.
Yeah. And I have I'm playing a hell of a lot of 30-point games at the moment. I played a couple last night, and I must admit I felt slightly guilty when Sherwin was playing with the new Necrofactorium command starter set with Nakane in it. And he said, and I was playing my Auriax list, and he's like, so tell me, which of your models has magic weapons? I'm like, pretty much all of them. So I had a good time, and he did not.
I don't think we spoiled too much there in the command discussion. There's plenty we could have spoiled, but I think you were controlled there, Matt. So yeah, all good.
Well,
Great job.
Yeah, not my first rodeo.
So I think at this point we're done with all of our questions, and Andy's been very quiet, so he's going to take the reins on all the Patreon questions. So these are from various people that have given us support throughout the months. So Andy, go ahead and take it away.
I am but our community's humble servant. All right, here we go. Joe G asks, what are the plans for new player journeyman support? I know we went over the 30-point boxes a little bit. I think some of his question has to do with marketing, prize support, any unique models for games. Do you have any plans for that kind of stuff yet?
So I think, as we mentioned before, we're looking at, obviously there was the Journeyman League and the kits around that. We're doing a full root and branch look at all that source of how we can bring that back or re-support it and make new versions. I think that will come into place, and as Matt said, the command format will likely be the starting point as well to help build on that.
All right. Silent Monk asks what the future of lore is going to look like. We've periodically gotten lore dumps in the app. If you have a subscription to the app, we'll receive story installments at the same pace in the future, slower or faster. Anything you can share about anything in development for Iron Kingdoms RPG as well?
So obviously, Strange Light Workshop is the next Kickstarter for the IKRPG line, and Matt Getz and Richard August, who's the lead RPG developer here at Steamforged, they're working very closely together. I got a précis of a couple of the crazy ideas that they're looking to include in the Kickstarter, and I liked them. So they're definitely going in. I think one of the things that we are doing is making sure that the timing of when lore is released makes a little bit more sense. So, and this is partly business driven, but it's also more importantly user experience driven. So if we're releasing a new model, it makes best sense to release a bit of narrative that involves that model around that time or just ahead of that time, so people get an understanding of who this model actually is and where they fit into the world and what their background is, and that helps understand why they have the abilities that they have and the role that they have in the army that in which they feature. So I think there's opportunity for us to improve in that regard and just syncing everything up. But in terms of the volume and the cadence, I don't see any reason for that to necessarily slow down or speed up dramatically. I think we will try and maintain course on that, but just tighten things up a little bit across the different departments just to make sure that what is being presented to the community is coherent and makes sense. One of the things I would love to do is, and if I ever can squeeze an extra couple of hours into the day, is some of those, and you do see it quite a bit with some GW games where they do these cool lore videos and they have awesome artwork in the background and someone narrating over the top. I mean, I'm an addict for those. Like when I'm painting, especially, I'll stick one of those on, and you just sort of lose yourself, imagining this crazy world that's being described. I would love an Iron Kingdoms series of that style of content. So
Erica has been begging for that for probably years now.
Yeah, I mean,
she would love a little vignette.
I would love to do that, and as Rich said earlier, when we got 30 terabytes of 25 years of PP's activity, there is a lot of art in there. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. So we've definitely got the raw material. We just need to find a bit of bandwidth to start pulling that stuff together.
That's great news. Let's see. Shruff wants to know if there's any plans for new blended armies, sort of like how they were in Mark III, with combined forces like Flames in the Darkness or Strange Bedfellows. Anything you can spoil there?
There is not currently, and as we've tried to outline in the manifesto, we do not want to bite off more than we can chew, and we think that there is an awful lot more advantage for everyone concerned, for us to kind of make sure that the ship is kept steady, kept pointing in the right direction. Obviously, never say never. A lot of these formats are a heck of a lot of fun. These are definitely the kind of things that would lend themselves well to narrative style events. So, watch this space in the future. But right now, there is no active plan for that style of content just yet.
All right, last one. I know when these guys were announced, I think everyone lost their collective Silent Monk asks if there's any news for the timeline on the Gravediggers.
So I've been under strict instructions to talk mysteriously about the end of the year, but I firmly believe that November is probably a date you want to put in your calendar.
All right. People are going to get real excited.
If anyone asks you,
if anyone asks you, say the end of the year, and then I won't get into trouble.
So are they just going to be airdropping boxes onto people's Christmas
Yeah,
trees?
there'll be like Amazon drones coming along.
Straight down the chimney. Straight down the chimney.
Exactly.
That's definitely the marketing tactic right now, isn't it? That's definitely happening. Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. One of the things that we have been working on, and hopefully this is of interest, and we've never been scared of sort of opening the curtain and letting people peek behind it, is and it goes back to the what I was saying about the narrative as well, is when a new army is released, it should be an event. It should be mad stuff happening and everyone's super hyped. And sure, you might not want to buy into it, but you sure as heck can enjoy the ride and see all the cool narrative coming out and see people getting excited about the minis and everything like that. So we're looking to build just a little bit more structure around how does a new army get released? How does it roll out over time? Obviously, we need to consider, especially in this day and age, not everyone has unlimited funds. And so making sure we're not dropping, hundreds and hundreds of dollars all in one hit and making sure it's coming out in the right way. So the Gravediggers will be a good opportunity for you to start seeing how we can start rolling things out in a more layered and integrated fashion that makes sense.
I think from a from a point of view of media as well, like we've been inundated with influencers, media requests, etc. Since the announcement. We might look like we haven't done much on the surface, but we've got quite a big reach out program happening on that. So we will be making sure that with the Gravediggers release, like Matt said, they will be in those influencers' hands way ahead of that, things like that. So we're going to get that content that's going to hit every channel, which you wouldn't have seen in probably the last year or so. So that's going to be quite a shift to see that when it's happening.
Yeah, timing and marketing can be really important.
Can I quickly dovetail off of something Matt was saying about upcoming content and the expose on big, new, important things? We're coming up on the summer season of gaming, and one of the highlights of the next couple months will be Gen Con. And I think this is going to be SFG's first opportunity to interface with the Iron Kingdoms at Gen Con this year. On the topic of hype, is there any plans for one of those big keynotes to come back into the forefront at these big conventions? Do we get to see some cool video production there?
Yes.
Yes, you can spot that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think look, so there's a couple of things that are worth pointing out. So I think given everything that's going on, the timings is this is likely to be more video than live and in person. But I am secretly a bit of a show off. I love presenting to big groups of excited people, and I really, really get excited as well. And it just ends up being one of the most enjoyable hours that I can spend. So we definitely love that kind of energy and that kind of connection. So we are going to look to make sure that we have opportunities to interact with people. I think that Gen Con is a little bit too close for us to kind of line all of that stuff up properly, but Adepticon is absolutely not close enough.
Yeah, I think from a Gen Con point of view, you probably noticed that the cadence of spoilers, like images and that, has slowed down a little bit in the last few weeks, and we're just kind of resetting.
Not if you're looking at my Reddit threads.
No, true. Yeah, true. Yeah, we're trying to keep them in check, but it's not that easy. But so we want to make sure we get the kids right, and we're just making sure we get the right avenues. So when we do something like Gen Con, that is the opportunity for us to actually go a bit further out than we would in our normal kind of release cycle and content. So yeah,
that's awesome. Thank you. I'm super excited for all the hype content. I love that. I love that big room energy.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's all the questions that we have. Now, we're kind of getting to the last segment of this episode, which is really kind of like talking about looking forward and what the future plans are going to go and be. So what's going to be the best way for all of us to kind of keep up with the announcements? I know that you had that manifesto that came out, and there was like the different bullet points, like the meet the team, community engagement and such. And the meet the team came out, which is really nice. It was like, here's everybody, here's what they do, here's how they're interested, get hype, right? And there was about maybe like a week and a half distance between those. So I guess what should we expect for when the rest of this manifesto is going to be put out? So that way we can at least manage our expectations.
Yeah, so steamforged.com, get on the newsletter. That is definitely one of the key pieces. The Facebook group as well is another key piece. And then our Discord, discord.gg/Steamforged are absolutely the key places to get that content. The manifesto, as we do, is going to be rolled out over the series of months, and we're going to make sure we're trying to get a kid. I think one's going up today, I believe. I don't know when this podcast goes out.
Yeah, ostensibly what we want to try and hit is around about that week to 10 days gap between them. I definitely want to make sure that someone from Steamforged is available for AMA or hanging out in Discord and making sure that people feel that they have an opportunity to react to what's been shared and ask any other questions. So we just need to sort of it's balancing diaries and make sure people are available and making sure that a document or a blog doesn't go out unsupported, basically. But nominally, a week to 10 days is roughly where we want to be with that. And as you saw in that very first doc, there's quite a few key topics that we want to talk about. And there's a whole heap of other stuff that's coming up. So the frequency will need to get a little bit quicker. Otherwise, we're going to be here forever talking about it.
Yeah.
And then the last part is there anything that you would be excited to share right now? Any questions that we did not ask that you've been dying to answer? Anything that's happening at Steamforged Games at all?
What, Iron Kingdom specifically, or just overall?
Anything.
We can say just overall.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. Eric is looking at that Elden Ring game right now. Like,
she's got that up on her computer. I got some sort of credits saved up, about to drop on some Elden Ring whenever that comes out. I'm excited.
I think it's that kind of question is really hard to answer without sounding like I'm showing off. Like, I cannot believe how lucky I am with what I do for a living. It's just brilliant. I get to work with amazing IPs, both original and licensed products. I've just come back from a big licensing show in Vegas about a month or so ago, and we're following up on a number of really exciting conversations that we had there. So not only do we have Iron Kingdoms, which is just a massive, awesome, exciting project, but we have an awful lot of other IPs that are rolling into the roadmap and people are starting to work on now. I do think, to kind of drag it back a little bit to more Iron Kingdoms focus, I just want to share with you that last week I got to spend a day at a factory who I'm working with on the P3 paint range, and I got to see the changes that we're making and test those out. But the thing that I really want to share is the metallics. We're transitioning from a mica flake to an aluminium flake, and the difference is night and day. These are some of the best metallics I've ever seen in my life. So I'm really, really excited about where the P3 paint range is going right now.
It's worth stating as well the factory that Matt visited is the original creators of the P3 paints. So we are sticking very true to where the roots of the paint range was.
The P3 metallics were always my favorite metallic paints to work with. I think my Grimkin army is pretty much like just the P3 paints, but the metallics, I haven't been able to find something to replicate those in other products. So I'm super excited to hear those coming back.
Yeah, I'm curious. Are you talking about the behavior of the paint or the color itself?
I guess both. So I'm a very novice painter. Like full disclosure, I call myself a dirty painter. So the they just look good. I guess I'm not that technical enough to be able to describe this. But for me, as like a novice painter and somebody that's not like super into it, like my brother or for you guys, those paints were always easier for me to work with, I guess. And they just look good.
Yeah.
Without a lot of extra work or inking or things like that.
I was going to say they're just good almost out of the bottle.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, like I was always able to use it without having to use like a wet palette or like right out of the bottle. It was good to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a hallmark of the P3 paint across the board. It's the nature of the pigment that factory uses, which is what brings the power to the P3 behavior. But it sounds to me like what you're describing, and I couldn't agree more, is the colors and just the range that's there, and that's absolutely something that I'm looking to preserve. It's more taking advantage of the technological advances that have happened since that range was developed. The pigment technology has moved on, but at risk of getting too technical, it's more the property of the binder and the medium that enables like a heavier pigment load, for example, which for someone who doesn't have as much experience painting, one of the challenges is always, and you'll see this a lot when you look on kind of on on the like feedback threads where someone says, "Oh, just thin your paint more because it's a bit texture that's built into the paint surface." That's largely because it's been overworked, and you largely overwork because the coverage isn't as good as you want it to be. And if you can improve the coverage, you work it less, and therefore you end up with smoother surfaces. You actually end up increasing the quality of your paint job because of a technical change in the paint. So the difference between a mica flake and an aluminium flake in a metallic specifically is just a stronger refraction of light, which is it's a stronger reflection, and the flakes can be a lot smaller, which means they lay flatter. So we'll keep the cool colors that you love, but we'll just make it a little bit easier for you to use and lay the paint down in a way that brings the beauty of the model out more.
I like to hear that
This is
stuff.
when I want Dan to do this spitball or the curveball. Like, what's umbral? What was it?
Yeah. What is umbral umber? I don't even know what umber is. I've never seen umber in my real life experience. It is only on a color palette. I don't know what this word is.
I just googled it. It's a darker shade of ochre. Yeah.
What is ochre?
Dark yellowish brown in color.
Made up mustard colors here.
So basically, they are names of the pigments. So back in the day when paint was made, you just found a thing that had the color you wanted to create that pigment, and then they gave it funky names. So yeah, you end up with raw umber, burnt umber. Yeah.
My real curveball I was thinking of is in honor of pigments. How many of your new bottles will be named by the Thornfall Alliance?
That is a good question. I mean, again, like because I don't really intend to change the colors, the names don't need to change either, and then that way it's very easy for people who have had previous experience of P3 to recognize the names going forward. But if there is an opportunity for a pig-based name, then I'm absolutely going to steal that idea.
There's already pig iron. It's there.
Pig iron is one of my favorites. It's like the perfect combination of coverage and metallic look, but it's dull enough that it looks like it's worn. So it doesn't pop, and it's not an in-your-face metal. It's like, I've been on the battlefield for a while. This is what I look like now, and I love that look for my guys.
All right, well, that's going to go ahead and take care of this whole entire interview. Matt and Rich, thank you so much for joining us on this Tried and True podcast. And what I want to do is just give you the floor for a little bit and any closing remarks that either you two gentlemen have.
Well, thanks for having us. I hope this is the first of many conversations that we have over the coming years. I think the thing that I would like to kind of share is my gratitude to the community in how they've responded, because it could have gone in another direction very easily and been, a little bit more difficult. The fact that people were so psyched, so excited, and so hyped about it is actually the kind of energy that I feed off of. And I love the positivity. It makes me want to work more, longer, harder, better, delivering the very best that I possibly can. So the more kind of psyched it is, and I'm not looking for kind of like, just clap. I'm looking for like people who love the game as much as we do, telling us what they love about it, telling us about ideas that they have, directions they would like us to think about or go in, and we feed off of that energy. So let's keep that going. I would love that.
Yeah, I just couldn't echo more what Matt's just said. Thanks for having us on and being able to talk, so passionately about it. We, as we said from the outlet, me and Matt are gamers. We always have been, and we've loved War Machine since its inception. And it's been able to come on shows like this and to be able to meet people, that really kind of gets that message across, which we can't usually do. We're not a faceless company. We don't try to be that. We really do try to interact as much as we can, and we think it's very, very important. Yes, as companies get bigger, it gets harder to do that, and podcasts like this and shows and being in the Discord just give us that connection that we really do value a lot. And again, as Matt said, such a good response across, and hopefully for everyone, we're starting to hopefully deliver on some of the things, and we'll continue to do that.
Perfect. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time. I know that the 6 hour difference is a bit of a stretch, so thank you so much for being able to work with us and being able to have you come onto the show and talk shop. As for your comment about having you come back, absolutely, you're more than welcome to come back, talk about all the awesome stuff that Steamforged Games is doing. I know that we are only excited or have excitement for what's going to be to come. I cannot wait to get my hands on that butcher model. I can't wait to go grab some P3 paints and just make him look like the most badass motherfucker like ever. Like, I am so stoked about that. So again, just thank you so much for your time.
Me too. I'm here for this transition, man. I love that you guys play War Machine. You don't just play it, you play a lot of it. You love the game like we in the community love the game. I, for one, am here for our new Steamforged Overlords.
Steamforged friends. We're all in it together.
He's been playing Orgoth lately, so it's just in his brain.
Yeah, Overlord fits, I think.
Viewpoint.
Guys, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to meet you and talk with you. Thank you for sharing your time with us and our listeners. Just, advocate on just for behalf of myself. I've been a customer of War Machine for almost 2 decades right now. So when the news hit, I just want you to know that I was super excited, and I'm very confident that you will take care of this baby that has meant so much to me over the past, almost 20 years now. And on that last note, just to plug Nova again, we still have some tickets available if anyone wants to join us in Washington, D.C. We have a menu of all kinds of events, including steamrollers, narrative, and some other fun stuff. So we still have tickets. Thanks again for coming on.
I really appreciate you guys' candid opinions. It's really, really, really cool to have guys come on that are working on this stuff that can just be able to voice their heartfelt opinions on this stuff. I know you guys have been doing a bunch of these AMAs on Reddit and everything, and the internet can be rough. So just just good luck out there.
There's definitely some themes to the questions that I'm noticing.
That's perfect. All right. Well, from all of us here in Delaware and over in the UK, thank you so much for giving us your time this episode. Look forward to the awesome things that Steamforged Games is going to be coming out with. Join up with their Discord, go on to their community site, get on that newsletter, and we will catch you on the next episode, everyone. Take care.
See you. Bye.
Thanks,
Cut.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.